Finally, and most importantly, I'd like to speak briefly from my perspective as a friend and a fan of Zanzibar. About a year ago, I spoke with a friend of mine who happened to be a member of the Zanzibari opposition. And he said to me, you know, we will have to win this election by a lot because we don't believe that CCM will actually cede power. And when he said that, I thought, oh, that's campaign hyperbole. We all understand how politics work. But he said, no, I'm serious. It won't go quietly. We can't just win. We must win by a lot. I spoke to that same friend, Zanzibari, shortly after the ZEC, the Zanzibar Election Commission, annulled the elections when it became quite obvious that CUF was likely to win. And at that point, the conversation was fairly short. It was somewhat emotional. He said to me, Ambassador Balozi, what do I tell my young people? I didn't have an answer. Because for the last number of years, 15 years, 20 years, the answer has always been, well, you must go to the elections. If you have a disagreement with the government, you must campaign. You must win offices. You must go to the ballot box. You must make your case to everyday families across the islands. In the weeks leading up to the rerun of the elections in March, I couldn't find one Zanzibari who believed that CUF would be given a fair chance to win. To be honest, I couldn't find one CCM friend who would look me in the eye and say that. They would usually change the subject. And I think everyone had the sense going into the rerun that it was a predetermined outcome. And that is a great point of sadness. What lies ahead for Zanzibar and Tanzania? I think it's a fair question. Given that friend's question to me, what do I tell my young people? The median age of a Zanzibari is approximately 16. That means you have a very large number of young people in Zanzibar whose only experience with elections is this election and what we've seen in the last few. And so I think the question that leaders of the opposition have to be asking themselves is, how do we look those young people in the eye and say, no, you must participate in democracy. You must get involved in the elections. And that is the question, I think, that the ruling party across the country will have to take on and answer. At IRI, we're developing a program called Generation Democracy, trying to bring young people into the democratic process to make it constructive, because we all believe that's where people should express their differences of opinion. The case gets harder when we have elections that don't fairly represent the will of the people. One final point that I'll point to that Malif made, which I think is quite important. It's important to understand that what you're hearing is not simply the result of the MCC, a single U.S. agency, or just the U.S. government. As he reported, it was a broadly held, supported report that came from the EU looking at the elections. So this is a community-wide opinion. Tanzania is a gorgeous country. It has unlimited potential. And I think Zanzibar can be in many ways the crown jewel. So I think we all have to hope that somehow we can get to democracy, citizen-centered, citizen-responsive government that reflects the will of the people. If so, I think the future is very bright indeed.
Thank you very much, Mark.